Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker, and today we're taking a look at the top 16 deck lists from the Disney Lorcana Challenge in Melbourne, Australia. This event took place on the 1st and 2nd of February. 511 players is of course low by our usual standards for a DLC, but Australia hasn't had the game for as long as the rest of us, and from my understanding Australia doesn't get many events, TCG events overall, so it's super awesome that they did get one. There's been a lot of bad energy associated with the event, courtesy of, I've already talked about it, Spessi's talked about it, Zanzai's talked about it, I'm sure Podcana and Artabax and all your favourite content creators, if they haven't already talked about it, they are going to. But this video is going to be nothing to do with that. I want to celebrate the players that made the top 16 of this event. Let's forget about the drama and let's show our appreciation for some incredible players. My information today comes from inkdecks.com. We have 7 of the top 8 deck lists. And then 4 of the lists from 9th to 16th. So we don't have the full set, unfortunately, but there was an update this morning, so I'm going to jump on it now and take a look at these lists. One thing I will say is no Ruby Amethyst and no Amethyst Steel. Again, we are missing 1 of the top 8 lists and 4 of 9th to 16th, so perhaps there was some Ruby Amethyst or Amethyst Steel amongst them, but from the list that we're going to take a look at today, not one in sight. So let's get on with it. A shout out to the channel sponsor, Cardmarket. If you're looking for Lorcana singles at competitive rates, then check out Cardmarket, but let's take a look at the top 16 deck lists. So we are starting off in first place with a player who is no stranger to Lorcana success. We have Din Kang Fam DKP, who is officially, finally a Disney Lorcana Challenge champion of the world! So huge congrats to DKP, who's been tearing it up at DLCs in Europe and North America all season long, and finally taking that dub I know means an awful lot to him and securing that invitation to the World Championship. It will come as no surprise to see them piloting their pet deck Ruby Sapphire, but a vastly different list to those that we would come to expect from Ruby Sapphire players, and even DKP himself in most events has been playing slightly more what we would think of as stock traditional builds, utilizing things like Tamatoa and Lucky Dime. That being said, there is also evidence throughout the season of DKP kind of tuning this list and working his way towards what it has become now. That my curtains have just fallen off. I feel like I must have looked like I slipped into the shadow realm then. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. Yeah, anyway, DKB has been kind of like tuning and working his way towards this build that we see now throughout the season, trying out different things. It's not the first time we're seeing the Super Goofs or the McDuck Manors. But yeah, a really clean 2-line special. We are not seeing, as I said, a lot of the usual suspects. No Lucky Dime in here, no Tamatoa. We're not playing into items at all. We've got the 4 Porpsicle, only 3 copies of Flavisham to feast on those Porpsicles being the only items, so not needing a full 4 copies. Far less of a control variant in general. We've not got those Maleficent Dragons. Obviously, we've got 4 B Preps, 4 Brawls, and playing 2 copies of Let It Go. So we do have ways of controlling the board. But we're really playing into that, what I think Ed put it best, the North American champion and a DLC champion, playing into the 2-pronged attack, as he put it, where you really value your locations and you're creating board states for the opponent where they have to worry about the locations that are gaining you lore, and in concerning other locations like Library or Queen's Castle can be having additional effects, but also having to worry about the characters on the board that are actually actively challenging or questing and providing multiple threat lines. And Be Prepared is obviously one of the strongest cards in the game, but if you play Be Prepared and then the opponent is able to drop mana, double location in general, and that's often really, really bad because you've not got any characters left on the board established to try and combat them. So really playing into the locations, and of course you create a conflict for your opponent by having the Maui Shark on the board, because obviously if you've got the mana down, you incentivize them to want to be turning sideways and challenge it and get it off the board, but then the Maui Shark is just going to feast on them, and we're really playing into the Maui Shark as like one of our primary win conditions here. just establishing him and then taking advantage of this plethora of actions. We've got 4 Develop Your Brain to help us find key pieces, 4 Sail to help us draw and additional ramp, 4 Vision of the Future, find those pieces, 4 Brawler, absolutely necessary, for Genies, opposing Flavishams, a long list of characters, just the aggro sort of stuff. How Far Ago, obviously a great way of ramping while filtering through your deck and finding the pieces that you need. And yeah, we've got the 4 B Prep, obviously, which are great removal, but you can also be subject to your own deck strength if you're playing against another Ruby Sapphire that's all a Sapphire deck that's also playing Manors, or the Amethyst decks playing their standard locations. Then if you B Prep and then they drop a couple of locations, that could be really bad for you. Obviously, we do have 4 copies of Maui Hero to All here, so we can combat that. But we need to respect Be Prepared not always being the optimal play, especially if you've got a bit of a board established with a Maui Shark of your own. So it's nice to have this targeted removal in the form of Let It Go. This could also be a Dragonfire, but this Let It Go being inkable allows us to keep our uninkable pool low as it is. We're only playing 8 uninkables, so this looks super, super consistent. And 4 copies of a Pirate's Life to slow the opponent down, give yourself a +2, and remember, if you've got a Maui Shark on board, you're gaining lore just from playing a Pirate's Life. If you've got 2 Maui Sharks on board, then just playing 1 Pirate's Life, you're going +4 lore, and we're running 4 copies of them. So there are just so many ways in this deck, and the Super Goofs as well. Obviously, not everyone's going to be playing around them, so you can maybe punish an opposing Tipo that decided to quest, or a Broom that stuck around a bit too long and surprised people. But even in the later stages of the game, if you've got 8+ ink, they throw down a couple of characters because you've got Manors on board and they need to be able to challenge them. They turn sideways and then just drop a couple of Super Goofs. That's immediate +4 lore. So this deck has so many ways of making huge jumps, just like Ruby Sapphire traditionally does, courtesy of things like Tamatoa and Lucky Dime. But this deck has an array of ways of doing it. It doesn't depend on the whole, okay, play Tamatoa, have it live for a turn so that I can quest of it next turn, or already have Dime on board, play Tamatoa, and also have a ton of items still left, after assumedly banishing some with Flavisham. So yeah, this deck looks really, really nice. I bet it's really strong in the mirror specifically. Against the aggro decks, we can ramp to Be Prepared as quick as possible, but we've got the Super Goofs to be able to keep them off it. We've got the Brawls, we've got the Maui Hero to All. And again, Manor having 9 willpower is just so tricky to get around. A lot of decks are lowering the count of their own Mauis as well. There are a lot of crabs around. Ruby Amethyst traditionally only plays 2. I've been playing 3, but normally only 2. But the EA Tempo decks, the Blurple decks, they're likely to be on high counts, but they don't have access to Maui. So 9 can be still very hard to hit. As a Ruby Amethyst player against this deck, if I'm ever in a situation where I want to play Be Prepared, or need to, then I always really want to be holding on to a Maui and a crab, so that after I go Be Prep, if they then immediately go Manor, then I can at least answer one of them and hopefully keep characters on the board to answer another that they might play. But then they just play their own Be Prep. So overall, this deck looks really, really strong. I imagine you're going to start seeing a lot of this version of Ruby Sapphire for the remainder of set championships and local events, etc. So yeah, overall, just a humongous congratulations to DKP, who has worked really, really hard, really proved himself as an incredible player, and I'm super glad that we'll be able to watch him at the World Championships. So yeah, big up DKP. Going on to second place, we have another Ruby Sapphire deck with 64 cards, courtesy of Racklum. I want to make one comment. Cards did nothing wrong. Cards did absolutely nothing wrong at all. It's not the deck's fault. But it is worth mentioning there is another deck in the top 8 which is exactly the same as this list, courtesy of Fabian. I'm not sure if these are 2 players on the same team or not. Not sure, but nonetheless, this is also a 64 card deck, exactly the same list. Personally, I'd always want to go 60, but I haven't tested with this over 60 Ruby Sapphire deck. So who am I to judge? And it did very well. But let's take a look. A lot more of a traditional Ruby Sapphire build. We are running 2 copies of that Lucky Dime, which allows you to exert, and you can gain lore equal to the lore on a chosen character. We've got a couple of characters here that already have 2 lore, such as the Scar and the Maleficent, but really we want to use this with our Tamatoa, who gets extra lore courtesy of each item on the board. And we've got the Dimes, we've got 4 Fishbone Quill to help us ramp aggressively. This is a rarer sight in Ruby Sapphire decks these days, to be honest. It's only since this set specifically. But yeah, Fishbone Quill Quill had very much fallen off, players deciding that the combination of T-pose, Sail, and how far I'll go is enough ramp, and obviously Fishbone Quill can really deplete your hand, which doesn't always feel good. But finding success here in as a 4 count and 4 copies of Porpsicle. So we've got a decent amount of items. No Ice Block is worth mentioning, and no Sisus whatsoever. Neither a Daring Visitor nor an Empowered Sibling. We are on the 4 copies of Be Prepared, which makes all the sense if you're not going to play the big Sisu. 3 copies of that Pirate's Life, which has become an absolute staple in all Ruby Sapphire decks these days. Just an incredibly strong part of the deck, especially in conjunction with the Maui Shark. We've got 3 How Far, 4 Brawl, 4 Vision, 4 South the Azurite Sea, 2 copies of Hideaway to either put an opposing location or item into their player's Inkwell. So if your opponent puts down a Lucky Dime prematurely, then you can really punish them with the Hideaway. And these, like, most decks only ran 1 Hideaway, some would run 2. I expect the majority of Sapphire decks to start running a minimum of 2, what with how well McDuck Manor has done in this event. So I think 2 is a good count. 4 copies to Develop Your Brain, again, another way to help find key pieces. Works really well with the Maui Shark. And again, if you are a Fishbone Quill variant and you're going to be depleting your hand that much more, then you want more of these good top decks like Vision and Develop Your Brain that are going to help you respond to the opposing board or just push your own. So I like it. For Tala, for Shark, we're running 2 copies of Scar Vicious Cheetah, one of my favourite cards. 7 cost, uninkable, 6/5, quest for 2, rush, and Daddy isn't here to save you. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may ready this character. He can't quest for the rest of the turn. So can act as a one-way Be Prepared with specific board states. Obviously, he can only make as many challenges as he is surviving with that 5 willpower, but if your opponent's got a wide board of some smaller characters like Small Cindy, Piglet, really good into Steel Song decks and good into like Emerald decks as well. If you can take a Cursed Merfolk and then an Ursula, and then if you can get a 3 or 4 for 1 out of this Scar, that's fantastic. And he is just obviously also just a 2-lore character, which is a nice card to put down if you've already established the Lucky Dime. So overall, a mostly traditional Ruby Sapphire deck. I don't think completely so. I think the most stock lists are those that are running like Ice Blocks and Big Sisu, and obviously Fishbone Quill, as we've established, is a rarer sight these days, but more akin to traditional Ruby Sapphire decks in comparison to DKP's first place list for sure. But yeah, congratulations to them. Also in top 8 on that Ruby Sapphire, probably saying this wrong, Kisoju. Nonetheless, congratulations to you. Also on a very, very traditional Ruby Sapphire list, we've got that Lucky Dime. We are running those 3 Ice Block, which when exerted allows you to lower the strength of a character by 1, which complements the Brawl, complements the 2 copies of Daring Visitor that we're running, which pops a character with 1 strength or less when entering play, and of course the big bad Empowered Sibling Sisu. 8 cost, uninkable, 5/4, quest for 3. She can shift for 6 on top of the other Sisu, and when you play this character, banish all opposing characters of 2 strength or less, which is already a decent amount of characters, but if you've got Ice Blocks on the board as well, then even more characters get into that range. 1 copy of the Hideaway. No Develop Your Brains in here. We can't play if you're running Ice Blocks and Sisus, then you can't run necessarily all of those nice consistency cards that we would like to run. We are running 1 copy of the Vitalosphere, which is a 1 cost inkable item, and when it's on board, you pay 1 ink and banish it, and a chosen character of yours gets rush and +2 strength this turn, which is not only a nice way to get a Maui Shark challenge out of nowhere, not completely out of nowhere necessarily if you've already got the Vitalosphere established, although if you've got enough ink, you can play the Vitalosphere, play the Maui Shark, and then pop the Sphere, so it can still have a degree of out of nowhere. Randy Orton reference, you'll have to see it. I need an edit of Randy Orton giving Maui Half Shark an RKO, I'm just saying. But yeah, it looks really nice. 2 copies of those Pirate's Life, everything else pretty traditional, so a huge congratulations to them. In top 16, also on Ruby Sapphire, we have Nathan Widup. This list looks nigh identical to the one we just looked at. Perhaps coincidence, perhaps these are teammates or friends, but as I said, this is pretty stock, so it wouldn't be a complete shock if they don't know each other and just ended up on the same 60 cards. But yeah, looks good. Congratulations to Nathan. And our final Ruby Sapphire list in the top 16, we have Jordan JV Verity on a list. Again, very similar to the one we just looked at. A couple of distinctions. We're running 2 copies of the Vitalosphere, and we are running 1 copy of the Madame Medusa. who has fallen off in a lot of Ruby Sapphire lists, but still a super strong card. Works really well with the ice block, so a 1 count seems pretty good to me. So yeah, nothing else really to say about this list. Congratulations to Jordan. Going back to top 4, we have fan favourite Jonathan Lamb on his traditional Sapphire Steel. 61 cards, and man, we got some spice here. So we are utilising the Lucky Dime that we've also already taken a look at, with a lot of characters here that quest for 2, but the best target for this is the Aerial, whom we'll get to in a moment. We are a Fishbone Quill Whole New World version, so we want to spend our first few turns ramping as aggressively as we can. We are running 1 copy of Tipo, no copies of Sail the Azurite Sea. So besides this 1 Tipo, our ramp is primarily coming from the 4 Fishbone Quill. So I think always definitely want to get that down on turn 3. Maybe there's exceptions if you did play Tipo on 2 and you ramp to Flavisham instead. But I think a vast majority of the time you're going to be wanting to play that Fishbone Quill on 3, immediately ink up to 4, and then on your turn 4 you can ramp up to as much as 6. And then if somewhere in that you can stick a Singer, we have nothing to shift here, so we'd have to wait till turn 4 or 5 where we can get down 1 of 3 copies of Cogsworth, who's a great Singer with that ward keyword, and giving blanket resist 1 to all of your other characters is really nice. And we're running 2 copies of Pyros, Lava Titan. 5 cost inkable, 5/4 quest for 1, and Eruption. During your turn, whenever a character banishes another character in a challenge, you may ready chosen character. And note the lack of text saying, this character cannot quest for the rest of the turn. Sorry, that sounded really childish. I don't know where that came from. But you notice the lack of it nonetheless, that the character that you ready can challenge, quest, sing a song, do the Mumbo number 5, whatever you like, mate. Which just has a ton of utility in this deck. Maybe we're just keeping a character safe. Maybe we're readying something so that we can sing a whole new world, or the 2 copies of Grab Your Swords that we're playing. Or maybe we are just questing again with Aerial Treasure Collector for 5. So really, really cool addition. Running 4 copies of that Tinkerbell, who of course does 1 damage to all opposing characters on play. And when she banishes a character in a challenge, you can do another 2 damage to a chosen character. So she can really lock down boards and like really make your opponent think twice about turning sideways. We are running 2 copies of Tamatoa. There's a lot of items in here. The 4 Porpsicle, 3 copies of Fortisphere, which is also a 1 cost inkable item which draws a card, but has a secondary ability where you can pay 1 and banish it to give a chosen character Bodyguard, which is not why you're playing it, but don't forget that it exists, because that's super, super interesting if you've got a nice wide board and you randomly give Bodyguard to, I don't know, like the Argus or the Tipo or something like that, and that could really be game-changing. But yeah, the Tamatoa are going to take advantage of some of these, and of course can feed on the Lucky Dime. We're running 3 copies of Twin Fire, which is a 2 cost uninkable action. Deal 2 damage to chosen character, then you may choose and discard a card to deal 2 damage to another chosen character. Against certain decks, like anything that's wants to go like Cinderella into Piglet, or Merfolk into, I don't know, 2 cost EA Tempo card, or any of these like low cost, just high aggro characters, this Twin Fire is absolutely going to win the game on the spot. Nice high count of it. And then the juicy additions, we are running 1 copy of Arthur King Victorious. 7 cost uninkable, 3/6 quest for 3, shift 5 is irrelevant unfortunately. Give us a 1 cost inkable King Arthur, you cowards. And Knighted by the King. When you play this character, chosen character gains Challenger 2, Resist 2, and can challenge ready characters this turn. So the fact he's got 3 strength is kind of, we don't like, because he praised a Medusa, but we've already established this video that a lot of the Ruby Sapphire decks are cutting it completely, although he can still just be ice blocked and Sisu, so we don't like that. But it does not matter, because if he got his worth, like just from the on-play ability, then even if he is immediately removed, so what? And if he isn't, then he's questing for 3, which is also a nice lore total to have next to the Lucky Dime. But yeah, this out of nowhere can be incredible, like if your opponent thinks that they're perfectly safe keeping their characters ready, and suddenly you give this ability to Tinkerbell, who obviously then, if she banishes that character, is doing another 2 damage. or the Pyros to be able to get off this ability which requires him to banish a character. Yeah, this ability is just so cool. And then we're running 3 copies of Pleakley, which we have seen Jonathan Lamb run before. Scientific Expert, 3-cost Ingable, 3/4, quest for 1, and reporting for duty. When you play this character, put chosen character of yours into your inkwell, face down and exerted. This has to happen. Worth saying, like if you have nothing on board and play Pleakley gotta ink Pleakley. But being able to just use this on your Simba or your Tipo, which has already served its purpose, it sounds pretty cool. I'm running 2 copies of Argus, who's a 2-cost Ingable 4/1, who's just going to be good for against opposing Flynn Riders or just big damage to take out big bodies, big locations, things like that. Without a doubt, my favourite of the decks, 100%. Absolutely love this, and Jonathan Lamb has been loyal to this in combination. I think they've played it every single DLC they've played. So yeah, love to see it. I would have loved to have seen Jonathan Lamb get his Worlds invites. Nonetheless, I'm sure that we can all agree we can expect great things from Jonathan Lamb in the rest of their Lorcana career, so huge congratulations to him. Going into top 4, we have Ben Simmons with some Diggy Hole, named and popularised by Brennan DeCandio. Salute to you, sir. And yeah, seemingly everyone's favourite new way to play Steel Amber, going away from the traditional builds that would feature Aerial Spectacular Singer and ordinarily a whole new world. We are playing a much more aggressive game plan, and we are taking advantage of the location 7 Dwarfs Mine, 2-cost Ingable, 2 to move there, 6 willpower, 1 passive lore gain. During your turn, the first time you move a character here, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character. If the moved character is a knight, deal 2 damage instead. We are playing a couple of knights. We've got 3 copies of Happy, who's a 1-cost Ingable 2/1 and gets evasive during your turn, so it can be a nice answer to Ab blows and help you with the damage needed to take out a genie. And we're running 4 copies of Doc Bold Knight, who on play allows you to discard your hand to draw 2 cards. So super aggressive. We do have ways to having more cards in hand. Of course, the 4 Rapunzels. If we can get a nice draw for 3 with Rapunzel, then by gold we'll take it. But if not, we're just going to play super aggressively, play to the board as much as we can, and hope to refresh with Doc. And of course, this 7 Dwarfs Mine is going to tick away 1 lore per turn, and the potential to be able to do 2 damage just by moving there with one of your knights is significant. And even if it's just 1 damage with any character, that is also significant. In addition to the location seen here, we're running 1 copy of Rapunzel's Tower, which has been touted as a card definitely to keep your eye on by DeCandio when we talked about his list after his latest performance at Charlie Collectible Show. We had him on the channel and we were talking about his list and cards he considered, and Rapunzel's Tower is absolutely one that came up in that conversation. And I can tell you from experience, a couple of set championships coming up against Diggy Hole variants that were playing this tower, it is super annoying. 2-cost Ingable, 1 to move there, 8 willpower. No passive lore, but characters they get +3 willpower, which is a lot of extra willpower. Can really mess up your maths for things, so I really like that addition. Running 4 copies of Cinderella Ballroom Sensation, simply here to put your opponent under a Cindy lock, courtesy of the 4 copies of Let the Storm Rage On, which does 2 damage and lets you draw a card, and Strength of a Raging Fire, which does 1 damage for each character you control to an opposing character, can get up to nice high numbers. 4 copies of that Daisy Duck, who's a 1-cost uninkable 1/4 quest for 2, and when you quest, your opponent looks at the top card of their deck. If it's a character, they can add it to their hand. So can help out your opponent, but 4 willpower is a lot to ask in the early turns, and if your opponent can get out a couple of daisies, that can spell doom. We're running 4 copies of Lilo Escape Artist, who at the beginning of your turn, you can choose to, if she's in your discard, you can pay 2 ink to play her. She comes into play exerted, which is a nice way of just having this sort of reoccurring threat. Really good into the Ruby decks that want to Sisu and be prepared, and just if you've got enough ink to be able to just keep bringing back 1 or 2 of these and make your opponent just keep having to answer it. So yeah, definitely a strong card in this deck. 3 copies of Piglet, who if you've got another 2 characters on board, then he quests for 3, which makes him a must answer. 4 copies of that Calhoun with that 3/2 stat line resist 1, and when she banishes a character, you gain 2 lore. And similar to Tinkerbell, she can really just shut down board states and make it so your opponent just can't turn sideways at all. 4 copies of Smee, of course, for those incredible stats, same as Lawrence, and Lawrence is really nice for setting up Rapunzel turns. 4 copies of Pete to shut down those actions. We've got 2 copies of Chen Po, who's a 4/7 bodyguard, really tough to get around to defend those Piglets, those Lilos, etc. etc. One copy of the big bad Gantu, who quests for 4. You heard me right, 4. He's a big boy. And I love the addition of 2 copies of John Silver, Ship's Cook, who on play, you can when you play this character, chosen character can't challenge during their next turn, which a deck like this where you're turning sideways with all sorts of aggressive questers, your opponent wants to be challenging, so that can be annoying in and of itself. But he is also a captain, which can really mess up your opponent's game plans. Like, as a purple player, if I see Smeeze, like, obviously Smeeze is a great card, but Chernobog's on board just means I'm going to at least be able to answer it. But if they put down the John Silver on 3 so that Mr. Smee doesn't take a ping damage, that is awful. So I love the addition. Deck looks really, really nice. Love the addition of the 1 Rapunzel's Tower. Huge congratulations to Ben. And in top 16, our other Amber Steel deck, also on Diggy Hole, we have Yon. I apologise if I'm mispronouncing that. A very similar version to what we just looked at. Also on the Rapunzel's Tower, 2 copies. Only 3 copies of the Mine. But in this deck, we are seeing 1 copy of Kida, who on play, all characters on board lose 3 strength until the start of your next turn, which can hopefully give you a nice free questing turn. And we're running 2 copies of Sven, 4 cost inkable, 3 quests for 2. And on play, you can ready chosen character that can't quest or challenge for the rest of the turn. So just keeping something safe, and of course he himself questing for 2 is really, really nice. So yeah, similar build, a couple of player preference cards, which sounds good to me. Congratulations to them. Going back to top 8, we have our one and only Emerald Steel discard. Not even going to attempt to say the name, but congrats to you. But yeah, the big bad discard machine. We've got 4 copies of that Prince John, who while he's in play, whenever your opponent discards a card in general, you can draw a card for each one, and we're going to make them discard in a variety of ways. We've got 3 copies of Cursed Merfolk, who your opponent has to discard a card to challenge. We've got 3 copies of Ursula, which lets you look at the opposing hand, and you can discard a song there to get rid of those whole new worlds. Be prepared, let the storm rage on, whatever it might be. 4 copies of Hypnotize to make your opponent discard and you draw a card, and 4 copies of Sudden Chill, which is a song to make your opponent discard. And of course, don't forget the 4 copies of Ursula, Deceiver of All, who can double sing songs, so she can do a double Sudden Chill, and if you've got a Prince John on the board, then that's a draw too, and that is pretty big. And we're also running that scary Diablo engine, 4 copies of the 1 cost inkable 1/2, who on play lets you look at your opponent's hand to find out if they have the answer for said Diablo. And of course the Floodbone, 3 cost uninkable 2/2 quest for 1. You shift him by discarding an action, evasive, and circle far and wide during each opponent's turn. Whenever they draw a card while this character is exerted, you may draw a card. This is a must answer character, otherwise he is just going to run away and make your opponent draw all the cards that ever did was. It's not just when they draw for turn. If you play Rabbit, Friends, Whole New World, anything, the Diablo player is drawing extra cards, so you need answers to this. I know I'm explaining a lot of things that people are like, why are you suddenly explaining Diablo, Baker? We know. But it's been a while since I feel like I've been like very newbie friendly, so I'm trying to be conscious of that in this video, especially because we're covering Australia specifically, which again, as established, they haven't had the game for as long, so I'm breaking it down a little bit more for today's video because of that. Running 4 copies of Pete to shut down those actions, 3 copies of The Muses, you go girls, 4 cost inkable 2/4 quest for 1, Ward, and the Gospel Truth. Whenever you play a song, return chosen character with 2 strength or less to their player's hand. We've already established there are a lot of characters in the game that already have that 2 strength or less. They can get into the range of this, and we're playing a decent amount of songs. We discussed the Sudden Chill, Let the Storm Rage On, Strength for a Raging Fire, all great songs for Ursula to sing twice. We're running 2 copies of I Want a Moment to Be Real, wanna touch things I don't feel, wanna hold on and feel I belong. I absolutely adore this song, if you didn't know. I'm Still Here is a 3 cost inkable song. Chosen character gains resist 2 into the start of your next turn. Draw a card. Very nice. And of course, double sing this with Ursula. Resist 4 or resist 2 on 2 different characters and draw 2 cards. Lovely. And we're running a 1 copy of a Heffalump-a-Woozle. It's very confusing. I know I still owe you Heffalumps and Woozles. Trust me, I got you. Just give it time. It'll be a spectacle. 2 cost inkable song. Chosen opposing character can't quest during their next turn. Draw a card. So a lot of songs here that Ursula can sing twice to get various benefits. And of course, singing any of these songs while you have muses on board can help you control the board extensively. And 2 copies of the Hidden Cove, which is a 1-cost ingable location, 1 to move there, 6 willpower, no passive lore, but characters there get +1 strength and +1 willpower, which can be good specifically just to help your maths in challenges. But just keeping things out of range, keeping Diablo out of being brawled, or Ursula the Deceiver of all out of being brawled, stopping Mr. Smee being Medusa'd, a ton of interactions that can really annoy your opponent. So yeah, this list is tried and tested, represented in DLC Australia in top 8. A huge congratulations to them. And our final deck list to take a look at today, in top 16, we have some EA Tempo. Just win the game. I do want to give a shout out again to Jesse, who we spoke about extensively in my last video, whose list is not available. And I have messaged him to ask if he plans to make that list available. He hasn't got back to me yet, and I need to push on. I want to push on and do this video. But I've already said to Jesse, we'll get him on the channel at some point soon. So maybe we'll do it to discuss his list, and we'll take a look at it then. But he was also playing EA Tempo, just win the game. But represented here by Darren, 62 cards. No one tell Podcana. However, 18 1-drops. It's kind of spicy. Darren, if you're watching, I needs to know, did you ever miss 1-drop, like, all day? And can someone please do the math for me on 18 1-drops, the likelihood to open with a 1-drop in your opening 7? And then, if you feel like it, you can tell me the maths for, like, however many you mulligan. I'd be certainly interested to know, but yeah, if they're set, Meister's going to love this set of 1-drops. He's going to love them. 4 Cursed Merfolk. We've got the 3 Chernobog's Followers, which you can exert and banish to draw a card. 3 Diablo, who lets you draw a card when he's banished. And Magic Broom, who lets you draw a card when another character is played. That ability always goes into the bag, by the way, just saying. 2 copies of Olaf, which is nice against Steel Song specifically. If they put down a 1-cost Cinderella, then Olaf is cool, I guess. I'm also perfectly happy, though, to just, like, play a Diablo and then turn to play another 2 1-drops and get around the City Lock that way, because I feel like those cards are better into most other decks. But Olaf has a purpose, and 3 copies of Pegasus, who I'm fine with, can just cheat out some nice early lore. For the bounce package, 4 Snake, 4 Fox, 3 Crab to boost up these characters to more substantial challenges. Take out bodies, locations, etc. 3 copies of the White Rose to gain instant lore. 3 copies of Kit Cloud Kicker to control the board, can really be necessary against opposing Flynn Rider frenemies. 2 copies of Lyle Tiberius Rourke, who I'm a big fan of. On play, you give an opposing character Reckless, so they have to challenge and can't quest on their next turn. And while he's on board, whenever one of your characters is banished, your opponent loses a lore, which can be really annoying for the opponent. And if you B-prep, he does see it, so your opponent would lose lore equal to the amount of other characters banished. I love the 2 copies of Prince Philip, just that 3/2 quest for 2 ward character. So you're never getting him with something like a Sisu, as he can't be ice blocked. We'll usually trade with whatever challenges into him. So yeah, I like the addition. 4 copies of those genies. 4 Goat, 3 Rabbit, 1 copy of Cricky to give all your characters +3 on playing, give you a nice challenge turn and questing for 3, and 1 copy of Ursula Sea Witch Queen, who can of course shift on top of the Ursula Deceiver that we're running. She quests for 3. When she quests, you can exert an opposing character, and while she's on board, characters can't exert to sing songs, which for a couple of decks is going to really annoy them, especially Steel Song. Also 2 copies of Sir Hiss to help with evasive characters. This plus a Crab is a nice way of dealing with an opposing Maui Shark, and 4 copies of that Go-Go Tamago, who on play, you gain lore equal to the damage on a chosen character. So anything big and bulky like a Tamatara or a Maui Hero to Wall, something like that, that's sitting on board with some damage on it, is not safe from the Go-Go. So yeah, list looks really nice. Not a fan of the 62 cards for this deck in particular, but nonetheless took them to top 16. So huge congratulations to Darren. And that is it. Again, apologies that we are missing a few. I will definitely get Jesse's, and we'll have him on the channel, and we'll have a chat with him, and we can get the community to celebrate him a little bit. I definitely think he deserves it. But yeah, like I said at the beginning, obviously there's a lot of bad energy surrounding this event, but overall I think it's super awesome that Australia got this event. I feel sorry for the players that had nothing to do with any of that and just wanted to go and enjoy playing the game, that whether they've been playing it for a while or they're brand new to it. Yeah, I think it's a real shame that there is bad energy surrounding it, so I really am glad to take this opportunity to celebrate the players, and if you're new to the game, welcome. Please stay, we would love to have you. And yeah, let's see some love down in the comments for our friends over in Australia. But that's going to be it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show support, and we'll see you soon.